All right. Uh, this is a brief tutorial for the Orthophoto Tracking Lab for Environmental Science here at NICC. Um, so to start out with, this is what the home page when you click on that link is going to look like. And so it's this ISU GIS facility website. You have a few different options. Here's the uh, mobile device app. Here's sort of the older version of this, and here's the newer version. And I personally I like the newer version. Either one of these should work effectively, but either way, let's just click on these, and it'll do a quick sort of walkthrough of how this system works. There are some sort of generalized sort of instructions here. So maybe take a couple of minutes and look through some of these options when you're working through this. It just might help with usability for this product. And then let's move my face. You just click OK, and you're going to come up with a screen that looks something like this. Now, what's showing up on your screen is going to be somewhat smaller than what the full screen looks like. Let me just move the viewer around so you get kind of an idea about what the full screen looks like. And kind of the important parts here are over here where you zoom around and move, and then up at the top here where you have these different layers that you can click on. And when you're trying to find your location, it's pretty easy to use. You simply just use the scroll button on your mouse, or just click and drag and move it around, and you can find any location. So we're up here in Northeast Iowa, so here's Calmer. So here we'll just zoom in on Calmer's campus, and here we are at NICC, right down here, south side of town here. And this is just sort of moves you around the map. Pretty easy, intuitive way to move around the map. When I'm asking you to find these different layers and photographs and things like that, you can find them up here in this what looks like a stack of papers, and says choose map layers. You can see right up at the top there. You can see where the cursor is, and that'll oops. Let me move my face. That'll get you this drop down menu here, and on the right hand side are going to be all of these different layers in the map that you can choose. Move again, and so you have layers, you have these transportation boundaries, and these again scroll through each one of these, so you can, if you're interested in finding different parts and pieces, there's lots of different layers that you can see. One of the layers that I ask you to find is the LiDAR, and so you simply click on that, and so let's do the LiDAR hillshade, click on that, and sometimes we have to unclick the primary layer that shows up, and let's see if this is just taking a while because I'm recording this. Let's try a different one. Let's try the 2010. There we go. That looks a little more reasonable. So when you click on this LiDAR, when you get this really high quality, high resolution topographical map, and so you can track and follow waterways as they move through the landscape. So Calmer's sort of at the top of the landscape here, and so any drop of water that falls on streets here, and depending on where the gutters and waterways move, this water can move through these different channels. This here is actually Lake Meyer, which is right outside of town, right here. Water moves through this creek down into Lake Meyer, and eventually down here into the Turkey River, down in Fort Atkinson. So these layers on the side are going to be where you're going to find these different things that I'm asking you to find. So this LiDAR layer is one of them for sure. So we unclick it, and it changes back to this sort of base layer, this 2021 Orthophoto. And I'm going to scroll down a little bit here, or move the screen down a little bit rather. The aerial photos can be found in this Iowa Historical Aerial Photos sort of library here on the right side. So you've got 90s, 80s, a few different versions from the 80s and 90s, and then you get down into the 1970s and the 60s and the 50s. And so if you click on these layers, sometimes again you have to unclick the previous one, and it brings up, this is the historical aerial photograph from the 1970s, and you can find more information when you click on it and things like that. But you know, the landscape looked much the same, but in many other ways somewhat different than it does today. You can see here, if we zoom in, this is where NICC's campus is, and you can see in the 1970s, it looks like they were just, you know, maybe depending on when this picture was taken, they were just building this site. And if we click on the 60s and unclick, oh, look, this was just a field in the 1960s. And so as you go through these different layers, you get the 1950s, again, changes, and then the earliest ones we have are from the 1930s. And so as you're going through these different layers, this is what I want. The soils layer that I'm asking for, the NRCS soils, right there, pretty self-explanatory, I think. And it'll drop in, let's go back to the 2021 picture. And it'll drop in the soils data so we can see that, well, the soils around Chalmers campus are these, and you can find out more information based on those sorts of things. I'm going to move my screen down a little bit again because these last sort of few layers that I'm asking for, these really historical ones, are down at the bottom here. This in this Iowa topographic area layers, the the 1875 Andreas Atlas. Well, here, let's turn off the soils. Where are the soils? There we go. So turn off the soils. We can turn off the old one. And based on this 1875 map, this is what the area looks like. You know, not the most descriptive of things, but we can, if we scroll out, we can get some ideas about what this area looked like. Look, I mean, you can see there's old railroad tracks. The town of Fort Atkinson was here. Calmer was here. But we can see that, you know, at least in this, according to this 1875 area, you know, much of South Campus was just sort of circled as a forest, you know. So there's information throughout the different layers on this website. So again, let's move back up to the top, and we can, this is where we're getting this information. Let's click out of here, and we'll go back to the 2021 version again, so the most current view. And so this is the system that I want you to be working in. And again, if you don't, obviously, if you're not in Calmer and your site's not in Calmer, that's really not the point. But you know, you can scroll around and look and move. So if you're in Decorah, you can look and see how landscapes have changed in Decorah, things like that. So hope this was helpful. If you have any questions, again, please feel free to reach out.